In the land of Eloria, the four kingdoms of fire, water, earth, and air had long coexisted in peace, united under the rule of the Elemental Council. But that peace was about to be shattered. A dark force had risen in the shadows, seeking to overthrow the council and claim power for itself. Its agents had infiltrated each of the kingdoms, spreading fear and discord among the people, and to consolidate its hold on the land, it had devised a cruel game that would pit the four kingdoms against each other, in a fight to the death. The game was called the Contest of the Elements. Each kingdom was required to select 10 young champions, aged between 16 and 20, who would be sent to an isolated island where the game would take place. The champions would be divided into 4 teams, each representing one of the kingdoms, and forced to fight each other until only one team remained. The game was to be held in the heart of winter, on an island that was known for its harsh weather and treacherous terrain. The contestants would have to brave snowstorms, icy waters, and dangerous beasts in order to survive. And if they failed, they would be left to perish on the island, with no chance of rescue. For the people of Eloria, the Contest of the Elements was a nightmare come to life. But for the dark force that had orchestrated it, it was a means to an end. The game would weaken the 4 kingdoms and create an opening for the dark force to seize control. As the day of the contest drew near, the champions from each kingdom were chosen. In the kingdom of fire, there was a fierce young woman named Kada, who wielded the power of flames. In water, there was a skilled warrior named Aiden, who could control the tides. In earth, there was a sturdy young man named Rolf, who could summon the strength of the mountains. And in air, there was a nimble young woman named Lyra, who could manipulate the winds. These 4 champions would lead their teams into the Contest of the Elements, each determined to emerge victorious. But they would soon discover that the game was far more complicated than they had imagined. They would face not only the dangers of the island, but also the treachery of their fellow contestants. As the contest began, the champions were dropped off on the island, each team at a different location. They were given a map, a set of rules, and a few supplies, and left to fend for themselves. The first challenge was to reach the center of the island, where a cache of weapons and provisions awaited them. Kada led her team through the icy wasteland, using her flames to keep them warm and ward off any beasts that came their way. Aiden's team navigated the frozen waters, using their powers to swim faster and breathe underwater. Rolf's team forged their way through the mountains, using their strength to climb the steep cliffs and avoid the avalanche. And Lyra's team soared through the sky, using the winds to carry them swiftly to their destination. But as they drew closer to the center of the island, they encountered the other teams, and the real contest began. Each team had to fight for their rights to the weapons and provisions, battling the other teams in a brutal fight to the death. Kada's team was the first to arrive, and they were immediately set upon by the other teams. Kada fought fiercely, using her flames to incinerate her opponents, but her team was outnumbered and outmatched. They were forced to retreat, without the weapons or provisions they needed. Aiden's team arrived next, and they used their control over water to their advantage, creating massive waves that knocked their opponents off their feet. Aiden himself was a skilled fighter, and he took down several members of the other teams with ease. But the fighting was relentless, and soon Aiden's team was overwhelmed, and they too were forced to retreat. Rolf's team arrived third, and they used their strength to their advantage, wielding giant boulders and hurling them at their opponents. Rolf himself was a formidable fighter, but his team was still outnumbered, and they were soon forced to withdraw. Lyra's team arrived last, but they used their powers of wind to great effect, creating powerful gusts that knocked their opponents off their feet. Lyra herself was a master of agility, darting around the battlefield and taking down her opponents with precision. But the fighting was fierce, and soon Lyra's team was also pushed back. As the teams retreated, they realized that the contest of the elements was not just about strength and skill. It was also about strategy and alliances. The champions from each team began to form secret alliances with each other, plotting and scheming in the hopes of gaining an advantage. Kader, Aiden, Rolf, and Lyra all found themselves drawn into these alliances, despite the risks. They knew that they could not survive on their own, and they needed allies they could trust. Over the next few days, the contest of the elements continued, with each team facing new challenges and obstacles. They had to navigate through treacherous ice caves, battle fierce monsters, and survive freezing temperatures. And all the while, they were being watched by the mysterious organizers of the game, who seemed to take pleasure in their suffering. But despite the odds, Kader, Aiden, Rolf, and Lyra managed to survive. They grew stronger and more determined to win the game. They knew that their survival depended on their ability to work together, to trust each other, and to outsmart their opponents. And so they devised a plan. They would gather all the other contestants together and propose a truce. They would work together to take down the dark force that had orchestrated the contest of the elements, and then they would turn on each other in a final battle to determine the winner. At first, the other contestants were skeptical. They had been taught to fight and distrust each other, and the idea of a truce seemed impossible. But Kader, Aiden, Rolf, and Lyra were persuasive, and they managed to convince the other teams to join forces. And so, in a stunning turn of events, the contestants of the contest of the elements banded together and launched a final assault on the dark force that had threatened their world. They fought with all their strength, using their powers and their wits to overcome their enemy. In the end, it was Kader, Aiden, Rolf, and Lyra who emerged victorious. They had led their teams with bravery and skill, and they had shown that even in the face of great adversity, unity and cooperation could prevail. As the contest of the elements came to a close, the champions returned to their kingdoms, hailed as heroes. They had proven themselves worthy of their powers and of the trust that had been placed in them, and in the years that followed, they would continue to work together to protect their world from any who would seek to harm it.